Hello, everybody out there in radio land. It is once again that time of the week where I come onto your radio dial and tell y'all what is really going on here in Kalamazoo, the state of Michigan, the so-called United States, and the rest of the world from a working class perspective, digging underneath the headlines and analyzing things and calling out the establishment on its BS. And of course, taking a incisive look at the mainstream corporate media. This is Media Cyphers, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may turn out to be. We've got a lot to talk about on today's show. Around the 30-minute mark, I'm going to be joined by my co-hosts Lawrence and Norah, who are going to be joining us to talk about some of the things going on at the national and international level. We've got a few local stories we want to cover while I'm with you here with you today. Um, I think we're going to start actually with some good news. It's not often that we get that, but you may have heard coming up from the state level, Gretchen Whitmer has been working on medical debt relief, which is obviously it is a very tangible issue to those of us in the working class, and that has trickled down in a good way to those of us here in Kalamazoo County. I'm going to be reading from an article here. This is from the Gazette/MLive. Kalamazoo County erases $2.5 million in medical debt for 7,000 residents. This was written by Brad Devereaux, published on July 18th. Nearly $2.5 million of medical debt has been erased for qualifying residents in Kalamazoo County, government officials said. In just the first quarter of this year, 7,231 Kalamazoo County residents had $2.49 million in medical debt erased through a new government initiative, Kalamazoo County said in a press news release. That averages to about $344 erased per person. With an ARPA allocation of $100,000 from the Board of Commissioners, Kalamazoo County partnered with the national nonprofit Undue Medical Debt to carry out the effort, turning the local investment into debt relief for residents. Residents were included in the program based on income or the burden of their medical debt. Medical debt is a real health issue, Board of Commissioners Chair Jen Strebs said. When people are drowning in medical bills, they delay care, avoid treatment, and carry stress that affects every part of their lives. No one should have to choose between their health and their financial future, she said. This is a chance to help our neighbors live healthier, more secure lives. Eligible residents were identified automatically through undue medical debt through provider and credit data. They were notified by mail and no application process was required, officials said. The nonprofit leverages donations to buy large, bundled medical debts at steep discounts, providing immediate relief to financially vulnerable families. Medical debt relief is source based, meaning the nonprofit must work with providers like hospitals or collection agencies to purchase qualifying medical debts in bulk. Debts are required for pennies on the dollar. $1 erases on average $100 of medical debt, according to the organization. In this round, each dollar from the county erased approximately $24.86 of debt. Beneficiaries will receive a branded letter in the mail from Undue Medical Debt starting this week, notifying them that some or all of their debt has been erased. Kalamazoo residents eligible for debt relief include individuals who earn 400% of the federal poverty level or below, that's about $100,000 for a family of three, or who owe at least 5% of their annual income in outstanding medical bills. Most recipients earned less than $50,000 annually, with 66% falling at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. Households of all sizes benefited, and more than half of the individuals were under age 45. The medical debt relief reached across Kalamazoo County zip codes, with the greatest numbers of individuals residing in 49048, 49001, and 49009. Every dollar of medical debt we helped eliminate is one less barrier standing in someone's way, Strebs said. Whether it's a parent trying to care for their family or one of our elders recovering from an illness, this is about giving people the room to move forward with dignity and less worry. Residents who have questions about the medical debt relief program or their eligibility should visit undoomedicaldebt.org for more information. Kalamazoo County previously announced plans to erase $89 million in medical debts for 38,300 residents using $466,000 of county money. The terms of the debt reduction plan have not changed, Public Information Officer Taylor Koopman said. This $2.5 million marks the first round of medical debt relief completed through this initiative, she said. Undue medical debts work is ongoing, and additional relief efforts will continue as they acquire and eliminate more eligible debt. County officials plan to share updated information quarterly as that process moves forward. So anyway, any way you slice it, this is some good news. This is much needed relief for working people here in Kalamazoo County. And it is a good panacea, or whatever word you want to use, to obviously what is going on at the federal level, where we are going to see a catastrophic and historic defunding of Medicaid. And it does show, or at least illustrate, how states and municipalities can step up to try to intervene on the behalf of their residents to try to at least do, I know it's kind of a cliche term, harm reduction in the face of this these catastrophic cuts and austerity that we are witnessing. Not to mention too, it should go without saying, America is one of the only countries on the planet where the idea of medical debt exists. Most countries, most developed countries, most just most countries on the planet have some sort of universal healthcare system. So obviously, I would not be doing my due diligence as a leftist without pointing that out. you know, the I say the length, or the what's the word? The distance to Medicare for all seems further than ever. I mean, it was certainly put on most people's radar about 10 years ago. But I do like to remind people that crisis, and the kind of crisis that we are in, can lead to sort of like referendums on the system that we're living in. A lot of people have referenced again the FDR and the New Deal as like kind of a North Star that we should look at in progressive politics. Now, again, there's some Marxist critiques you can make about the New Deal, and I'm not going to go into that because that's not really the subject of what I'm talking about. But what I will say is the New Deal and FDR's reign as president was preceded by the Gilded Age. It was preceded by massive income inequality, and it was not until militant labor organizing and the very real prospect of revolutionary like a legit revolution, as they saw with the Bolsheviks over in Russia, that you started to see the ruling class in America quake in their boots a little bit and give the people things like Social Security and jobs programs and so on and so on and so forth. I think we may be getting to a similar inflection point. Again, American empire is in a very precarious place, but I do think once the dust settles and we, essentially no longer have capacity to be the big empire in charge, we may have some elbow room to, again, maybe scare the rich a little bit and get some universal health care in this country. But until then, hats off to the Kalamazoo County and people at the state level who are bringing some much needed debt relief to Kalamazoo residents. You can find a link to that article. You want to read it for yourself. That is Kalamazoo County erases $2.5 million in medical debt for 7,000 residents. It's written by Brad Devereaux. You can find that at the MLive website / Kalamazoo Gazette. The next piece I want to bring to your attention, this was actually published a couple of weeks ago. We haven't really had time to dive into it on the show yet, but this is a fantastic piece of journalism from NowKalamazoo that kind of links the very local with the international, and it is about a Kalamazoo resident who was part of one of the recent flotillas that attempted to bring aid to the people of Gaza, which, as we're going to dive into a little bit more deeper in the show, is in a crisis point Intense mass starvation is going on in the Gaza Strip, deliberate starvation precipitated by the Israeli government. And this is a report from Lauren Kuchta from a Kalamazoo County resident who went over there and tried to make a difference and talk about what they observed. So it's published on July 10th. Headline, it was a very precise, clean attack. A Kalamazoo resident says the May 2nd, 2025 Israeli attack on a ship he was on carrying food and medicine to starving Palestinians is growing support for their cause. It was just past midnight in the Straits of Sicily when the glass around Khalid Jamal shattered. 2 months ago, Jamal, a longtime Kalamazoo County resident, was aboard the Conscience, a ship bringing hundreds of tons of food, medical supplies, and toys to Gaza. Its engine room had been hit by a missile from an Israeli drone. It was a very precise, clean attack, Jamal told Now Kalamazoo. They basically dismantled the ship. Minutes later, a second missile struck its power generator. The Conscience was organized by the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, an organization made up of activists from around the world who, for 2 decades, have been attempting to ship aid to Gaza by sea. The FFC sent its next ship, the Madeleine, a month later on June 1st. It was intercepted by Israel on June 9th, and the activists aboard, including Greta Thunberg and Mehdi Hasan, a French member of the European Parliament, were detained in Israel and later deported to their home countries. On July 13th, the Hondola will set sail for Gaza. Well, that was actually about a week ago at this point, but I digress. Israel has restricted Palestinian access to food, medicine, and other aid as a weapon in the decades-long war over territorial control that includes curtailing the freedom of movement and other human rights. This has accelerated since October 7th, 2023, when Hamas and other militant groups launched a multi-front attack on Israel. Israel says there's still 50 people remaining captive, although they assume more than half may be dead. Since then, Israel has conducted extensive bombing campaigns and ground assaults, killing more than 55,000 Palestinians and causing widespread displacement and loss of healthcare and food access, which is, again, something we've reported on extensively on this show. But again, just quick reminder for those who are listening. This has escalated the urgency for the shipment attempts from the FFC, although Israel often interdicts or attacks their vessels before they can reach Gaza, a strip of land on the sea bordering Israel and Egypt. Jamal had barely been aboard for 5 hours before the attack. The Conscience would never finish its journey. Jamal spoke about his experience July 8th at Kalamazoo College's Arcus Center, hosted by Kalamazoo Nonviolent Opponents of War. Now Kalamazoo spoke with him earlier in the day. A 51-year-old Palestinian American raised in San Francisco and Ramallah, Palestine, Jamal formally joined the FFC in March 2024, but he'd been eagerly following them for years. In 2005, he met future organizers as they worked in the Palestinian village of Badrous. There, with the International Solidarity Movement, he was working to stop Israel from building a separation wall and seizing Palestinian land. We kind of achieved a victory at Badrous, Jamal told Now Kalamazoo. The wall was still built there, but Israel made a decision. They're not going to confiscate any of the land in that village. Jamal came back to Kalamazoo, his home since 1999, but kept in touch as plans for the FFC began to develop. There was always a need for aid to get into Gaza, Jamal said. When they started it, they recruited other people. It just grew so fast. The FFC grew so much that once Jamal applied to join, it was almost a decade until he was accepted in 2024. It was a very extensive application process. It's an extensive interview process. They look at your background, what kind of skills you have, whether they're physical, mental, or educational, or maritime skills. It was Jamal's previous experience with Night Watch that finally got him recruited. In April 2024, he planned to leave for Gaza from Istanbul as part of the FFC's 3-ship Break the Siege flotilla. Maritime laws require ships to sail under a country's flag, and Guinea-Bissau had offered its flag. Just as the FFC was about to set sail, however, Guinea-Bissau revoked the offer. This decision coincided with a visit by Israeli President Reuven Rivlin. The flag was withdrawn, and Break the Siege was unable to deliver aid to Gaza. We tried different ways, different flags, and it didn't happen, Jamal told Now Kalamazoo. We went back to the drawing board and we reorganized, and that's where we started planning with the Conscience. Almost a year later, at 8 p.m. on May 1st, 2025, Jamal and 17 colleagues boarded the Conscience off the coast of Malta. The ship was carrying around 300 tons of non perishable food like flour, grains, and rice, over the counter medications, medical supplies, and toys. We boarded under the plans and the pretext that we're going to continue our mission of sailing towards Gaza. We're all excited. We're trying to keep up the spirits. There's people that were worried. The Conscience's crew was made up of activists from around the world. Those with maritime experience navigated the ship, and doctors and nurses served in case of medical emergency. Others helped with necessary tasks like cooking. Jamal was part of the Conscience's night watch, tasked with keeping a lookout in the event of an Israeli attack and trained to conduct emergency procedures and update those on land if necessary. The risk from previous missions loomed large. Israel had attacked and intercepted other ships, most memorably the Mavi Marmara. In 2010, the Israeli Navy raided the FFC's Mavi Marmara, part of a larger flotilla bringing aid to Gaza. And by the way, I'm just going to digress a bit. This really points out a very important historical point. While we've all been paying a lot of attention to what's been going on over just the last couple of years, the crisis in the Gaza Strip has been going on for a very long time, over the course of decades, since Israel basically seized it and put it under their complete control. Going on, part of that larger flotilla in 2010, bringing aid to Gaza, they killed 10 of the unarmed activists aboard and injured over 50 others. Again, unarmed people bringing aid to people in need. So, to protect its members, the organization holds extensive safety trainings prior to every departure. They show us every single video of how the previous flotilla missions were attacked, how the Israeli commandos come up, how they would arrest people, how they would zip tie them, how they would put them on rafts. The one that they're really, really focused on is the Mavi Marmara, he explained. Every day they went through it point by point because they don't want that to happen again. The attack on the Mavi Marmara ended with many activists in Israeli prisons, permanently disabled or killed. We're in a war zone, basically, Jamal said. It's a war zone where we're trying to get aid in. So the FFC take that very, very, very seriously. After watching the footage, volunteers spend 2 days replicating previous attacks on FFC vessels. They get dressed up as if they're IDF soldiers and we're in the hull, Jamal explained. They replicate the noise and the lights as if we're being intercepted by the Israeli commandos, and how to get into human chains, how to resist, what to say, and what not to say. Sometimes that is the most important bit, whether you're dealing with the IDF or just the Fed in general. Anyway. Going forward to having Jamal kind of talking about his experience on the ship. Jamal was in the Conscience's kitchen at 12:23 a.m., only hours after boarding, when he heard the glass shatter. Ship's remaining electricity was destroyed just over 2 minutes later with the attack of the second missile, which targeted its emergency generator and life support system. Unaware of the extent of the damage, or whether more was soon to come, the Conscience's night watch sent out an SOS. However, Jamal told NowKalamazoo that their eventual rescue was delayed by several hours due to interference from the Israeli military. The Egyptian and Libyan navies did not respond to any of our calls, even though, by international maritime laws, they were supposed to, he recalled. As the Conscience radioed for help, he heard constant interruptions from the Israeli Navy. They're fine, they need no help. He and his colleagues consistently changed the radio's frequency to signal for help without interference. Each time, the interruptions continued. The Conscience lacked the proper technology to block them. Hours later, a rescue boat arrived from Cyprus, followed by Malta's Navy. It was trying to find that clear channel that delayed us significantly, Jamal recalled. A lot of the other navies out there thought we were okay. After putting out the fire with help from Malta and Cyprus personnel, the activists on the Conscience returned to Malta. Passengers from Turkey and North Africa picked up by the Conscience before it arrived in Malta did not have EU visas and were not permitted to enter the country. We said we're not leaving them, Jamal told NowKalamazoo. For the next few days, the crew of the Conscience went from the Turkish embassy to the Maltesian government, advocating for their fellow activists. Jamal accompanied them home on a flight to Istanbul, then came back to the U.S. 4 activists aboard the Conscience sustained injuries, but all 18 survived. The ship was towed back to Malta, and the 300 tons of aid had to be destroyed in accordance with international maritime law. Flight tracking data later confirmed that an Israeli C-130 Hercules flew towards Malta in the hours leading up to the attack. After the conscience was hit, the plane returned to Israel. The plane is believed to have been carrying the drones. We were not expecting in our wildest dreams out here, 12 kilometers off the coast of Malta in the Straits of Sicily, that we're going to be attacked, Jamal said during Tuesday's KNOW event. We were expecting something like this possibly happening as we got closer to Palestine, but in Europe, in international waters, and by the way, that is very audacious, and it kind of shows the extent that the Israeli government is really given free rein by a lot of Western governments to just do what they will. He and his colleagues had made a list of 17 international laws that prohibited attacks on unarmed ships in international waters. When Israel got a hold of us on our frequency, we would call out every single law, he said during Tuesday's event. The FFC makes it clear to its volunteers that being killed at sea is a very real risk, and activists are required to submit to their will before boarding. I try not to think about the will, Jamal told the audience. What overshadows everything for me is I know that kids are dying in Gaza, and we have to do whatever it takes to get there. Jamal's own children, both in their early 20s and activists of their own, were very supportive of his decision to join the FFC. They took it like real heroes, he told the audience. Jamal said the silver lining to the ships being attacked or activists detained is that it creates awareness for their cause and adds to their political power. He points to the success last month of New York State Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, who spoke out against Israel and won the Democratic Party's primary for the New York City mayoral election. Mamdani's biggest supporter base is the youth movement in New York City, Jamal said, especially, and I really want to emphasize on this, in the younger generation. And that was an article from NowKalamazoo about, again, that was about Khalid Jamal's experience in the Freedom Flotilla getting attacked by the Israeli government while trying to deliver aid to starving people in Palestine. That was published by Lauren Kutcha, published on July 10th, 2025. Got a quick hit before we pivot to some of our national and international stories. This is a story from a couple weeks ago. I wanted to talk a little again. The big theme of this year has been austerity. There's been a lot of austerity going on. Just stripping the copper wiring out of the social safety net. I want to talk about one of the implications of this. We were talking about how some of the cuts coming down from the Trump administration are going to affect Kalamazoo's efforts to create climate resilience hubs. And the general idea behind resilience hubs, I'll get to this in just a second. Excuse me, is from this article I'm going to be talking from. It's written by Amelia Perez Ubergulen, published on July 11th on Bridge, Michigan. Future of climate resilience hubs uncertain after Trump cuts. Resilience hubs are community facilities that provide vital resources from food and water to medical supplies and backup power before, during, and after disasters. By the way, this could be big. We've had a couple of disasters so far this year. We're talking about those really big storms that knocked down power lines and caused tree damage. That qualifies as a disaster. And again, those things are happening more and more frequently because of the climate crisis. Sorry, I'm a little aside. They're typically located in underserved neighborhoods where residents are disproportionately vulnerable to the effects of climate change. In Detroit, for instance, power outages have historically hit low-income and minority communities hardest. In 2021, after extreme flooding overwhelmed parts of Detroit, Megan Richards turned to the Eastside Community Network for help. The network paid for basement muck-up, helped people out with their FEMA applications, and gave out supplies, said Richards, who is now the organization's Assistant Director of Climate Equity and coordinates the Resilient Eastside Initiative. Going down a little bit further, talking about EcoWorks, alongside the nonprofit Solar Faithful and Interfaith Power and Light, announced a similar plan to convert 15 soup kitchens, churches, and mosques into resilience hubs using a $20 million community change grant awarded by the EPA. But in May, the Trump administration suddenly rescinded that award, along with other grants meant to benefit historically underserved communities, which amounts to about $2.7 billion nationwide, saying they no longer align with the agency's values. Democratic lawmakers criticized the move as illegal, arguing the grants were made using funds that Congress mandated be distributed to disadvantaged communities under the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. An agency spokesperson rejected that argument, characterizing the grants as an example of the previous administration forcing the radical agenda of wasteful DEI programs and environmental justice. Yeah, it's just again more of the same. Blame everything on a big woke or whatever. That's how ridiculous that is. Anyway, going down a little bit further, talking about especially how this affects us here in Kalamazoo. Two of the five Michigan grant recipients, the Intertribal Council of Michigan and Kalamazoo County, filed a class action lawsuit against the EPA and its administrator, Lee Zeldin, last month, demanding the agency reinstate all the grant awards. The Planning Commission joined the suit as a class action member, Hamilton said. Kalamazoo County had planned to use their $18.9 million award to develop four neighborhood centers that could be used as emergency shelters during extreme weather and improve the energy efficiency of 300 homes around the city of Kalamazoo. The Intertribal Council had planned similar upgrades to tribal homes and to make 12 government facilities into resilience hubs. Lawyers for the county and council claim the terminations have harmed and will continue to harm communities that face the greatest impacts from environmental degradation and have historically had little voice in the decision making process that affects them, according to court filings. On July 9th, Attorney General Jana Nessel, joined by 18 states and the District of Columbia, filed an amicus brief supporting the plaintiffs. The filing argues that canceling congressionally mandated grants violates the constitutional separation of powers. I've got to go down just a little bit further here, but talking a little bit about one more example from Dearborn. A neighborhood group in South Dearborn is looking to the legislature for support. State Representative Albas Farhat has requested $8 million in the state budget to help fund the construction of a resilience hub equipped with an air filtration system, a solar array that can store power for 72 hours, and communications equipment that works during outages. The unfortunate truth is that there's disproportionate impact on my constituents who live in one of the most polluted zip codes in the state. On top of facing increased health and environmental risks, many of them also struggle to afford the high cost of utilities and repairs that result from climate change. Again, if you want to read that for yourself, that is Future of Climate Resilience Hubs Uncertain After Trump Cuts. It's published on July 11th, written by Emilio Perez. Barguin. Okay, we're going to pivot now. We've got my co-hosts are about to join me, and they're going to be talking about some. We got some updates from Norah about things going on in Chicago. Talk about the state of trans rights. We're also going to be talking about some Gaza updates. That little story about Epstein you may have heard of. Do a Colbert report. And more. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Okay. Everybody out there in radio land, you all are still listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR. Joined now by my co-hosts Lawrence and Norah. Norah, we haven't had you on the show, I think, since the election. It's really great to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, all things considered. Glad to be back.
Oh, yeah. Really cool. Lawrence is, of course, on the program too, and we're going to be diving into a lot of important stuff later. But Norah, I want to start with you. We got some limited time, and you are kind of our de facto Chicago correspondent, so I know there's some stuff to talk about over there. As well as some other pertinent things that we have talked. I mean, on a personal capacity, we talked here and there, but not
Hmm.
on the show about some of this stuff. So, there's a story I remember you shared with us about the transit system in Chicago and how that ties into some of the. We've been doing a lot of stories lately about austerity,
Oh
and
yeah,
yeah.
this is a big one. So, because like I think like just kind of ties into like a general federal austerity that like a lot of different state and local governments are having to deal with piece by piece. And that's funding public transit. And for places like for like New York City, Philadelphia, et cetera, a lot of transit organizations got federal funding, especially during COVID, like an extra surge of federal funding that lasted until like this year, basically. So there's a lot of state imposed deadlines that like certain state governments have to meet in order to continue funding transit to continue as normal. And much to the frustration of many people who live in the Chicago area, the state legislature waited until like the very last, few hours to pass a bunch of bills to try to fund this stuff. And they did not successfully get something passed both the House and Senate in order to fund transit in Chicago, which gives us to quote the article that I shared from Block Club Chicago. Hundreds gathered for a rally in Daly Plaza noon on Saturday to ask state officials to solve a $70 million fiscal cliff the Regional Transportation Authority faces next year that could cut area-wide transit service by 40% and eliminate entire CTA buses and train lines. It comes after state lawmakers forced to pass a bill this year that would reform the regional transit system, provide funding to plug the 77 million gap, 770 million gap, in transit area budgets. The bill passed through the Senate and stalled in the House of Representatives before missing the June 1st deadlines. At the rally, transit advocates and local leaders have demanded Pritzker call legislators back to Springfield to solve the transit budget deficit, with some protesters questioning the Democratic Party's allegiance to their constituency. A summer session for the transit bill could be possible later this summer, as Governor Pritzker has told reporters in a conference last week. But despite the possibility of a special session to pass transit funding, which is the only way that we can, still actually get the funding, is if the governor decides to like get all the state legislatures back to doing their damn jobs. Critics of Pritzker said that he hasn't done enough to shore up public transit funding amid rumors of a possible 2028 presidential bid. So, like, a lot of people, like a lot of like progressives nationally, really love to hype up Pritzker as like sort of like a really good example of a Democratic governor. In a lot of ways, he is, but he just, this is really dropping the ball in a major way. Like, to allow something that so many people rely on both in the city and the suburbs and even like out of state is going to be devastating for an economy that the state in general is heavily dependent on. So like if you can't even keep things as good as they were previously or even like attempt to slightly improve them, which the bill would have done if it did pass, then how's that going to look? Like if people don't like you in your own state, you're not going to run for president. And it really bugs me when people like still try to hype him up. I mean, I guess at least he's not as bad as say Gavin Newsome, but this is like really, really dangerous levels of austerity that could hit, the city of Chicago and even affects like a lot of, long distance commuters in the Southwest Michigan area.
No, that's absolutely true. And some of the big interstate projects that have been going on have had like an emphasis on trying to uh, kind of bolster the ease of transportation in that Midwest corridor, between
Hmm.
Chicago and Detroit, and Chicago and Milwaukee, Minneapolis, etc. So it definitely feels like it's a real big step backwards, even from trying to make it easier to connect people across this particular region. And yeah, like you mentioned, like this is stuff that people depend on every single day to get to work. It's interesting how some of the austerity that's going on is going to shoot the capitalists in the foot. How are
Hmm.
your workers going to get to work if they don't have a cheap and reliable source of transportation to get there? Especially when gentrification is increasingly pricing people out of the city center. So yeah, again, it's a lot of short-sightedness, which isn't really surprising. But yeah, it's going to again make it more difficult for working people to get where they need to go. And it's again, it's an example of America going in exactly the opposite direction of the whole rest of the world, which almost every other country is really trying to sink more resources and improve their mass transportation infrastructure, whereas ours is going exactly backwards.
Yeah, and it's really disappointing to see. And it was a big reason why I moved here in the first place because like I'm not the best at driving and car maintenance is expensive and like kind of a scam in some ways. Don't even get me started on how people need to go into car debt on top of student debt to be able to have like a job in this country. But like it's like, the way that people are predicting how these cuts will affect people is like a lot of like potential like, rail maps are show like most of the like like two out of three of the South Side area like CTA trains gone, as well as like the Pink Line, which is like, they just put that in there. That's like relatively new compared to others. And it was very important for the West Side and Southwest Side. So this is really going to disproportionately affect disabled people, like Black and Brown people. And it's really sad to see. Like, it's gonna like traffic is gonna be so bad, and even if like a lot of these people can still like get a bicycle to what few train stations will still exist, like there's gonna be bicycle traffic, which I actually have had to deal with more than you might expect already.
It's also significantly more challenging, especially in the middle of winter, which,
Oh man.
despite climate change, Chicago winter still got pretty cold, as I
Oh
recall. So,
yeah. Oh yeah.
so
No, it hasn't been a lot of snow, but it still gets quite cold. Like that's not something you'll want to have to walk or bike extra distance in. So I really hope that like JB Pritzker wises up. I hope that these sort of like actions downtown, like, continue to make our voice heard and demand changes. Because if we don't get the special session, then like a lot of stuff is going to start spiraling.
hmm absolutely. I think with that, did we want to pivot a little bit? I know we've talked a little bit about this on the show before, particularly in the abstract, talking about Democratic Party throwing trans folks under the bus, and we've kind of talked a little bit about Gavin Newsome. But I know he's kind of come out in I wouldn't even say double down. It's just this weird both sidesism that's maybe even a little bit more harmful than if he was one way or the other. But Nora, I know you mentioned you wanted to kind of dive into some of that too while we got you.
Yeah, yeah. So, what we're referring to is Gavin Newsom continuing to be a podcast bro because he somehow thinks that's gonna like make him president. It's such
Yeah.
so stupid. But like
Yeah.
he previously he said he completely aligns with the gender politics of the likes of Charlie Kirk, like very like the fascist Turning Point USA guy, Charlie Kirk, the guy with the tiny face. But like but and but like he went on to double down. I would say it's double downing by showing up on the Sean Ryan Show podcast, one I haven't even heard of. Like what is he doing? Like, doesn't he have a state government to run? I don't get it. But
Yeah.
he started by questioning the participation of trans athletes in sports, which again has like no basis in science as to how that might actually affect sports performance. And like escalated it into sowing doubt about evidence-based gender affirming care, and even like promoting like fake news about schools providing litter boxes to furries, kids who are furries. Like, oh my gosh, so
Yeah.
many right-wing grievances are just like things that people make up to get mad at. And it's so sad to see like, the governor of California, like, going in for that. Like I'm trying to think of like the trans people who had to move out of like I don't know like Florida or Idaho or wherever to a place they thought was more trans friendly like California, like uprooted their whole lives only to find out that their governor is being whacked like this. Like, and I
Yeah.
think that like what he's doing is really not going to give him the numbers that he needs to be president, because like we actually already have tested whether or not like throwing trans people under the bus works, and it doesn't, because Zoran Mondami has probably the most like robust pro trans platform of any U.S. politician in recent memory, and he like won with incredible numbers in New York City, almost guaranteed to become their next mayor.
It's almost like if you actually stand for a policy or you stand with policies that will actually affect American people, they won't easily be swindled by demagoguery and garbage. Like,
What a concept.
I think that's right. What a concept, right? Actually have policies that affect regular Americans, right? When I say regular Americans, I mean your blue collar, I'm working 40 hours a week and I still need another job to pay the bills, American, which is all Americans. Like when you see grifters like Gavin Newsom doing what he's doing, or even I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to speak on the other story because I had a phone call. But like when you see people like Gavin and others, or and their policy or their ideas have nothing to do with the working class, but they are more than happy to speak on fringe ideas, that's how you know you're cooked. If this is supposed to be the best of us, if this is supposed to be the people that we are looking towards to push back against fascism, I think it was, like that. That I haven't heard. I've heard Gavin Newsom talk about fighting back against, ICE and stuff like that. I haven't actually seen him actually do a policy about it. Like you hear
He's been
him
he's been
talking
saying
about,
sassy things to the president on Twitter. What
yeah,
more can he do? No,
he'll say stuff about the Epstein files, right? And good. I want the Democrats to double down on the Epstein files the same way that the Republicans was doubling down on Hunter Biden, right? I want the Democrats to do that. At the same time, though, how about you regulate PG&E? How about you put some of that funding into fighting the homeless problem? How about you take some of the funding that's
well,
from
quick
the
reminder: Gavin
LAPD?
Newsom's idea of fighting the homeless problem is literally fighting the homeless and forcing them
Yeah.
out of their
So yeah.
encampments.
So I'm like, there are a number of things you can do as governor that's not throwing fellow citizens under the bus. And that's my
I
point. And
think
that's my point. Like, dog, you're not going to be president. You missed the boat. You should have challenged Biden. You didn't. You failed. Let it go.
I think you bring up a really good point how like as the governor and like with the laws that California has in the books, like it's a sanctuary state. Like ICE should not be have done as much as it did during these past couple months without like the local, state, and county police openly collaborating with ICE against the sanctuary laws they have in place. And I think that's something similar going on in Illinois as well, where you have again a deep blue state, and maybe not this isn't as much of a problem with ICE as far as what I'm aware, but like multiple hospitals are like breaking Illinois law to like shut down gender affirming care for trans youth in the University of Chicago, in Rush, Hospital, in Lurie Children's Hospital. All these hospitals are like blocking trans affirming care up to age 19, which again goes above the age of majority. And I think another really dangerous thing that's happening in terms of the ever escalating anti-trans rhetoric is that we have to ban transition at this age, but that age that for young people supposedly keeps getting higher. For example, in Puerto Rico, the Republican government passed a gender affirming care ban all the way up to age 21. So I think that you really have to again, you really have to like be there for all of your constituents and like not be willing to give an inch on some sort of like hot button gotcha issue that the GOP is only successful at pushing their agenda because liberals like Gavin Newsom and like the New York Times editorial board are going along with them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dog. Like, I would love to ask Gavin Newsom, how is this bringing down the homeless issue in your city? How is agreeing with the right wingers? How is agreeing with right wingers helping to get healthcare to all people in California? If it's not doing any of those things, then what are you doing, son?
yeah, and it's worth noting, like governors in much more precarious political climates than Gavin Newsom. I'm thinking like Andy Bashir from Kentucky
Oh
have
yeah.
made a principled stand for trans kids in a state that again a lot more socially conservative than California ever has been. He represents this kind of wing of centrist analysis from the Democratic Party that apparently they lost the election because they were too woke or too quote unquote left
Oh
or
my God.
whatever. And yeah, again, for most of us, we can see that at its basis, like that's a very silly and stupid answer to why they lost the election. But a lot of them have to believe it because otherwise they have to contend with the fact that, like, again, the skeleton key to them winning elections is the kind of economic populism advanced by people like Bernie Sanders, et cetera, and they don't want to touch that with 10-foot pole. So they have to make all of these weird prescriptions. And again, it seems it seems goofy and silly and stupid, but also again it has tangible effects on people's lives. If he runs on this platform that throws trans people under the bus, it gives permission for other centrist Democrats to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even when, as you pointed out, Nora, as we've seen the results of actually standing up on some principles, people, voters will respect that more. But yeah, we'll have again keep updating y'all as these things develop. But I think it was an important story to talk about too, because Gavin Newsom, he has been in a lot of liberal news in a positive light for quote unquote standing up against Trump. And as we pointed out, he really hasn't been doing too much, but he's been getting a lot more recognition because of a lot of the ICE stories come out of LA. But it's a good reminder to folks that this man is like a cardboard cutout. He doesn't have any principles, and it will be very dangerous if he tries to elevate himself into a position where he could be the next president.
Yeah, one thing that I am getting tired of, this is just me in particular, something that grinds my gears in particular. I am tired of Democrats just doing speeches. I'm tired of Democrats soft pedaling fascism. We don't have time for this. We don't have time for grandstanding. We don't have time for you to be giving speeches. We need you fighting back. This is the time for you to do grandstanding motions. Uh, you should have did a while ago. We don't have the luxury of you pretending to actually fight for Americans. We don't have time for it. And that's the thing that has been making me the most upset during this time. Like Democrats seem like you can just tweet at the president and that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
you
the
can
the the, the
you
Reichstag
can
burned down several months ago, and they're talking about can't
yeah,
wait for the midterms. Oh boy, oh, we're really gonna clobber them then. No,
yeah, like
Mm.
Josh, we don't got time. Yeah, we don't got time for you to be playing.
yeah.
We don't have time for you to be playing.
So with that, I think I want to pivot and talk a little bit about some national/international stuff. We're gonna spend some time getting some Gaza updates. Things over there are just absolutely dire. And obviously, we've been talking about this story for 2 years. We've been talking about Israel Palestine for the better part of a decade on our show, but things in Gaza are really coming to a horrific head. They're talking about like hospitals. There's not enough food left to feed the medical staff. Images coming out of Gaza are just like don't necessarily share them with people who already know about this stuff. If you know anybody who is trying to willfully ignore it, go ahead, but it's pretty horrific. Starving children, babies, infants.
From what I've
We
heard, they're entering a stage of famine in which even if like they do get food, like, if they get food like after this week, then they'll still have health complications for like years and years to come. Like this is like really like irreversibly bad stuff. And like I don't even know how like we stop this at this point, right? Like
Mhm.
even if we overthrow our government
And
tomorrow, like will we be able to like successfully stop like other Western governments from backing Israel the next day? I don't know.
I
Yeah,
mean, like as bad as it is in in Gaza, and it is like it's have this. It is an international war crime. What Israel is doing, and the world needs to treat it as such because and it's not just a situation that's going on in Gaza, like what's going on in Darfur, what's going on in the Congo, what's going on in Sudan. There's
Hmm.
also there's also mass genocides and casualties and ethnic cleansing situations going on in those locations as well. And all of these places, like we have to stand with oppressed people where they are, right? And I know that we're talking about, and I'm bringing up these other places, but we can financially demand that our politicians and that our government does not fund or give money to Israel. Israel has universal health care. Israel has universal health care. There's no Israel has their own standing army. Israel has nukes. There's no reason for us to be continue to give them money to do a genocide,
I
and
think,
Which
we
at
Lawrence,
should
that's a
least give
stand on
perfect
that.
that is a perfect segue into a domestic aspect of this issue we wanted to talk about. It's
Yeah.
like, well, one, the most horrible person you know made an excellent point. Marjorie Taylor Greene recently was echoing a lot of what
Oh,
Lawrence just
jeez.
said. And there's essentially a an amendment.
Broken clock, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's an amendment that they put in that would restrict some of their Iron Dome funding. Basically arguing, hey, they're a nuclear armed state. They can take care of themselves for a bit, and making a point that a lot of progressives make about how all of this money that gets spent for foreign intervention, all that stuff is stuff that money could be spent here. And it got only like 6 people voted yay on it. Some of the people in the quote unquote squad or whatever's left of it. Something that's been a really kind of big story among a lot of the kind of U.S. progressive left is AOC voted against it, and that's caused a lot of
She
discourse.
she voted present, right?
I
I
don't remember which one it was, but she didn't vote with the rest of the six.
Yeah.
Like she would have
Yeah.
been the seventh.
So
Which okay, like the way I'm seeing it, like I think Story put a really good point. Like where the way she tried to justify it is like, oh, I don't want to like have harm come to these Israeli citizens either, which like I like get on a certain level, but like if like you're trying to stop a mass shooter that like, you don't help fund their bulletproof vest to let them do more mass shootings. You know what I'm saying? Like there's there's
like like yeah. No, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
like when people were chanting not another nickel, not another dime, like that's what we meant, right? Like if that like I don't like I our tax dollars shouldn't go to that country at all. Like if anything, they should like pay for it themselves, even if they want to protect their own citizens because of all the bad stuff they're doing, Like that's like other countries
Um,
like Iran and Lebanon are like the only ones that can like even attempt to stop it at this and
Yeah.
Yemen, but even then they're like very limited, they have very limited sources. Like, of course,
Yeah.
like there's a lot to be said about how like a lot of people are leaving Israel and like how their societal collapse is like inevitable, but it's not happening quickly enough to stop the genocide.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Um, I have
I
a couple
agree
points. I'll
with
get to Lawrence first.
no, I agree with the criticism of AOC. Like I don't see a strong enough reason to vote present or to vote on the other side. And I don't even like Margaret Taylor Greene. Like I'm not even gonna hold you. I think
Oh
Margaret
yeah,
Taylor
yeah.
Greene is completely and utterly a troglodyte. If you did not like the amendment that she's putting up there, then ask for some alterations. Ask for some alterations. Like you have agency. Be like, hey, I think that this doesn't go far enough. This doesn't go far enough. We don't need to put another dime, another nickel into Israel. We don't need to give them foreign aid that's not just tied to Iron Dome. We don't need to give them foreign aid at all. You could have said that. And I would have been like, you know what, on principle, because that's what she's saying, I get it. Not voting for it, yeah, I don't know how to shoot her some bail for this. This is
Yeah.
bad. The optics is bad.
Hmm.
Not voting for it kind of stands against kind of things that you're saying, especially if Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar voted for it. You're telling me Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib voted for this, but you didn't?
It's not a good look no matter how you slice it.
Many organizations have been come out against this. The National DSA, was it Palestine? Uh, Solidarity organizations are coming out against it. There's this. I'm going to read just kind of sum up a
They're
quote
coming out.
from
They're coming out against the bill, or coming out voting against the
oh
bill.
against specifically like how AOC voted.
I
Um,
got you.
there's a excerpt. I'm going to read this real quick from So Jewish Currents put out an article in response. Iron Dome is not a defensive system. And I think it really again gets to the core of what is wrong with this argument of saying it's like, well, we should defend the lives of Israeli civilians, which again sounds good in a vacuum. But Jewish Currents, Dylan Saba wrote, um, by almost entirely negating the ability militant groups in Gaza to respond to Israel's incursions, the defensive Iron Dome allows Israel to strike without fear of repercussion. And because the cost is so low when measured in Israeli casualties, Israel can wage perpetual war without suffering domestic political consequences, is under negligible pressure to pursue diplomacy with the Palestinians. It basically ends up facilitating greater Israeli offensive measures because it lowers the perceived cost to Israel escalating or extending or initiating attacks. And you saw this theory proved very recently when Iran was able to send a barrage of missiles that pierced the Iron Dome. Israel became a lot more willing to negotiate for peace. And it's not to say it's ever good for any civilian to get hit with a missile or whatever, but it is also worth noting that less money for if they have less funding for the quote unquote Iron Dome from America, that means they would have to take some of those resources that they're currently using to take pot shots at starving people in Gaza and use it for their Iron Dome. And the big problem is, AOC making this argument is like that particular base, that progressive base, knows how to do that math. And that's why there's so much frustration about this. And also why I think, it's worth pointing out, you know, AOC, her role, being as famous and popular as she is, she really does have a lot of control over the Overton window of American politics. What is the most like kind of left most position that you can make? And by doing this kind of both sidesism about a country that is actively carrying out genocide, imagine again being like, when Belgium was terrorizing the Congo in the 19th century, talking about, we need to defend those Belgian soldiers, or again looking back about 100 years ago at Nazi Germany, is like it's important. We shouldn't send the Nazis money, but we got to make sure that none of the people get hurt. It's that level of historical anachronism, and that is why it is not jiving. And for somebody who's been watching, particularly like somebody like AOC over the last couple of years, it becomes a really big problem where a lot of the base is again getting a lot more left and radical on this issue, and it's like trying to put like what is it, like a speed bump or a stop sign in front of that base. It's
No,
like go no
no, you're
further
trying
than
to
here.
you're trying to put tube back in the toothpaste.
Yeah,
And the base of the Democratic Party is sounding and acting more and more like MLK and X
yeah. And if your sensible
than
role is to push the Democratic Party left, which is why you got
yeah.
elected, you got to let that toothpaste flow out of the tube. That's
Yeah,
your job. That's why
you
you got
gotta,
elected.
you have to guide that thing. And that's the thing. You have to guide it to where it needs to be. That also means you need to be on the right side. This is also the double standard. AOC has to be on the right side of history at all times. Politicians are not going to be on the right side of history at all times. And
Mhm.
that's the fundamental truth of politics. It is unfair, but that is also what's expected when we are talking about leaders that we need to get behind because they're on the right side of history the majority of the time. Sometimes
Mhm.
people, sometimes some people fumble the bag. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Barry Sanders is my favorite running back of all time, and sometimes he fumbled the ball, right? Once in
I
a while,
love
right?
somebody pointed out he told Zoran, oh, you need to soften up on some of the Palestine rhetoric. Like somebody clapped back. It was really hilarious. Bernie, in all due respect, Zoran won his primary, so that
Right. No, no.
yeah, yeah,
I love Bernie, right? And
yeah.
but that's my point. I love Bernie, but Bernie sometimes dropped the ball, especially when it came to reparations, right? That's a totally different conversation that we could have.
Mhm.
But but I need when it comes to these type of moments, these kind of moments, yeah, you need the politicians that everybody talks about as being the best progressives in the land to be on the right side of history. She's not standing with or being with Rashida and Ilhan, and she should be. Those three, those three should be in lockstep at all times.
I
You know
think
what I'm
like
saying?
it's kind of like even ties into the previous conversation we're having. Like people who are like obviously trying to run for president soon, like they need to like a lot of progressives have like very important litmus tests of both trans rights and like Palestine as like the main ones. But like you really gotta be like on board with this stuff, or else you like how are you gonna make it through the primary yourself against a crowded field like this? It's just not as doable. Because like Zoran again won his primary by being uncompromising in his values, and it took him to an easy victory with him with all that and the charisma to go with it. If AOC like I know that she's voted president on Iron Dome funding before, but if like this went differently, then like we wouldn't even be having this conversation about it. It just like she'd be a lot better of a prospect for sure if that's assuming that is still what she wants to do. I have to get going right about now, but thank you again so much for having me, and have a great rest of your night, everyone.
Oh yeah, you
Mm.
too, Nora. It was great to hear from you again, and have an excellent evening out there in the Windy City.
All right, you too. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. I have just one last thought because like Nora kind of took the words from my mouth. A lot of people have it's funny, it's like sometimes you hear people on the internet speculate about certain things like, oh, AOC sold out or she but probably one of the more colorful things is she's a CIA asset, but I'm not really gonna get
That's
into
crazy.
that. Oh yeah. But
No,
Occam's razor, but yeah,
AOC is one of the best out here. Just
yeah.
AOC dropped the ball.
Yeah, Occam's razor. Here's what I think of it. Whether it's this or there's we've criticized other votes and things she's done in the past, and and this is like by her own admission, she's gotten a little bit more friendly with long-term politicians like Nancy Pelosi and people in the kind of centrist wing of the party, and it's Occam's razor. I don't think nobody's handing her a bag of money on off stage. I think she's trying to thread the needle on being like, I need to be as progressive as I quote unquote can while still being allowable, something that is allowed in the Democratic establishment. Because yeah, I think she's got presidential aspirations, and even some of the more centrist people in the Democratic Party's camp are eyeing her as a candidate because she's one of the few politicians that's got some actual zazz. like, but the problem therein is, if we keep if it keeps compromising on this, that, and what have you up until 2028, what are you necessarily going to end up with? Are you, because what I don't know what AOC was promised, but one of two things are going to happen. Either, and I know this is a really cynical read of it, but I'm looking at just the past few election cycles here. Is if they if they play fair and let her win the primary, I'm almost suspicious of like, okay, what had to be dropped for them allowing you to do that? Or AOC is gonna, sacrifice a couple principles here and there, and they're still gonna be like Charlie Brown with the football and ram, AB Klobuchar or Pete Booty Butt down our throats or something. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't think there's not enough evidence for me to be like, yeah, oh, she sold out or whatever. So I feel like she has been assimilated a bit. Do I feel like she has been assimilated a bit into the establishment? Yeah, by her own admission, she's had to play nice with a lot of the establishment. You know what? It's fair because you have to play nice with people who you need on your side so that they can vote for your agenda. You know what? Okay, but there's certain principles that you cannot let slide. There are certain things that we can't let slide. And I feel like this is one of those moments. Like we can't let we cannot let uh these kind of moments slide when it comes to uh defending funding towards people who are committing genocide.
Yeah.
We don't fund countries, we do not support countries that are doing genocide.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. So I have a few quick hits before we go to our next topic.
Mhm.
What's a few quick hits? I mean, since we got off that deep, that very dark and deep subject, let's lighten it up. We call ourselves media ciphers. There have been some uh, uh good and bad things. First things first, I found out while I was at work that Malcolm Jamal Warner passed away, and I was sad about that.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to Malcolm Jamal Warner. If you don't know, he played Theo on the Cosby Show. He done a number of roles. He's played a number of roles over the years. He was a fantastic poet, artist. He passed away, so R.I.P. to him. He's one of the goats. Um, since we are talking about hip hop, but I do want to talk about something good that has brightened my weekend. That did brighten my weekend. The Clips dropped the album. There hasn't been a Clips album in over 12 years, like 12 to 14 years. And since we call ourselves media ciphers, we talk about hip hop and like we're children of hip hop, right? Um, Clips is one of my has been one of my favorite duos for a long time. Malice and Pusha T, let God sort them out. In my humble opinion, is arguably album of the year. It is on the low end of 4 out of 5 mics. Is a 4 mic out of 5 mics. In my opinion, on the high end, it is a 5 mic album. There's no skips. I've made the argument with some of my friends that the Clips have made age appropriate music that is age appropriate for them and the subject matter that they talk about, how they talk about things, the level of lyricism that they put into it. Pharrell getting in his bag, Pharrell being in his bag in this album. Just there are no skip. Like the first 10 songs for me are no skips, and the best song on the album, in my opinion, is "Birds Don't Sing." If you haven't heard it, go and listen to it. It's outstanding. Like um, yeah, feature it had features from Tyler the Creator, Kendrick Lamar, Nas, John Legend, Stevie Wonder. Like there's a whole it is masterful. It's amazing. It's outstanding. It's one of the best pieces of work that has come out in a long time. I'm excited for JID's album. Tyler the Creator just dropped, I think, today.
Oh, yeah,
So I'm
that's
gonna
right.
listen to that album. Yeah, as soon as I get off. Yeah, I just wanted to bring in some good news. Even though all this tragedy that we're going to talk about, there's still more stuff to talk about. The Clips, let God sort them out. Absolutely going to listen to it. It's out soon.
Yeah. Oh man, you got me excited. I gotta listen to this. This is
Bro,
my next day off, which I think should be doing tomorrow, I think. But
bro,
yeah.
FICO, Mike Tyson punch to the face, Chandeliers with Nas, uh, So Be It, Whips, Chains and Whips. Like, there's so many. But Birds Don't Sing is gonna make you cry. I'm telling you this now. Don't be surprised. It's gonna take you there. It's gonna take you there. But yeah. Um, Also, so going from that thing that was really good to this garbage human being. Um, and this is my last quick hit. RG3. RG3 made a bunch of posts uh about Angel Reese. And the reason why I bring this up is because we're talking about media, because we talk about media and media analysis, right? Angel
Yep.
Reese and the rest of the WNBA, and the WNBA is having their All Star weekend. Gorilla's going to be performing at their All Star weekend. I'm excited to see it. And Asia is my girl, and I love her. And I also love Angel Reese. The reason why I'm bringing up Angel Reese is because Angel Reese is on the cover of 2K26, right? The new 2K that's coming out.
Yeah.
She's on the cover, right? She's one of. I think she's one of the first. I think she is the first black woman, or one of the first black women to grace the 2K cover. You know, the covers are, right. RG3 has said a lot of very disgusting things about Angel Reese. He is because of the fact that he has done a number of things that is anti-black, especially towards black women. And it's disgusting. But he reposted a racist meme about Angel Reese, and it was not okay. It was just not okay about how certain folks, especially when it comes to gaming and gaming media, treats black women or just treats black people in general. And the reason why I want to shout this out, and the reason why I want to talk about it, is because there's other people who is in the sports world and other people who are in media that called him out. Shout out to Shaq. Shaq basically threatened them live on a podcast saying, "If you speak about her again, I'm gonna punch you in your throat." And I was like, "Good job. We need to protect black women. We need some. We need to protect black women." Thank you, Shaq. You and the other people who came to Angel Reese's defense. Thank you. That's amazing. We need that. But yeah, those are my quick hits. I'm done.
Okay, well, I think that's a good time. Why don't we transition to okay, this is a really obscure story. I'm sure you haven't really heard anything about this. It was like a finance guy. I guess he had like an island resort somewhere. Jeff. Oh yeah, Jeffrey Epstein has been in the news
Oh, Trump's best
again.
friend for over 10 years.
Yeah. Oh boy. So I think it was like 2 weeks ago was the last time we were live, and I think it was just maybe it was just breaking, and we were like trying to read the tea leaves. It's like, oh, how is the base going to respond to this? And it has been really fascinating. If you are a watcher of the media and of like political commentators and stuff, the way people have been melting down about this, which is to say, of course, the Trump administration doing a complete 180 from literally doing publicity stunts, giving right-wing podcasters binders full of something, apparently, files that don't exist, apparently, to turning around, and now AG Pam Bondi is saying, actually, there are no Epstein files. Do not look at the man behind the curtain. There's nothing here. And then the president spiraling out on social media, and again doing a complete 180 because if you haven't paid any close attention to right wing media or been in a position where you can ignore this stuff, this has been like a lodestar to the MAGA movement for years, going back to you know, as far back as 2017, 2018, if you think back to like Pizzagate and all the QAnon theories about them drinking adrenochrome and kidnapping kids and stuff. Um, Now, the Epstein files have been like just like the golden calf for a lot of these people. And for the president to do a complete 180 and say that these files were in fact fake, made up, they were made up by the Clintons and Obamas of all people. Which again, I was talking with my friends. It's like if this was made up by the Clintons, why would Hillary finger her own husband? I don't know. Maybe it's some revenge. I don't know. But
I mean,
you know,
I want to remind everybody that this is also coming at the same time that the Trump administration has also released the MLK Junior files as well. This is also coming at the same time that Trump still hasn't sent FEMA enough financial assistance to deal with the flooding in Texas. That all of this is coming in the fact that the tariffs that Trump has had to back off the tariffs because the countries has done tariffs against us, and that the big beautiful bill is absolutely unpopular and has devastated and going to devastate um,
It's an
Americans in
amazing
their
time for him to
healthcare.
roll up a newspaper and bash the nose of his own base. It really
Yeah,
is like he
yeah.
needs that base right now.
So his base doesn't care about healthcare being taken away from them. The base doesn't care about the cutting of FAA officials so that we can fly in much more regulated and secure airplanes. They do not care about the JFK files have also been being released, right? He's doing everything in his power to stop doing the Streisand effect of the Epstein files because the entire time MAGA was being told we need to protect children from criminal pedophiles, forgetting the fact that the president partied with the guy who was a part of Elite Sex Crimes Incorporated. So much so that Ghislaine Maxwell has said that she is willing to testify in front of in front of a grand jury to talk about what's in those files. And the Trump administration said, "Nah, you good? Stay in prison." And he's like, and she's like, "Yo, if you're saying that these files don't exist or that these files aren't real and that there isn't a client list, then why am I still in prison?" Which is logical, right? You
Yeah.
would think that's logical. Why would she still be in prison if what the Trump administration has said was 100% true? So she's just been in prison for nothing, even though Trump wished her well, right? So we have a man that it's documented that he met his third wife on the Lolita Express, the same Lolita Express that Jeffrey Epstein was using to fly back from his island to Mar-a-Lago to traffic women. Some women that went through Mar-a-Lago who was underage, Trump knew about. They hired them anyway, and they used to party with Epstein. It is in court documents that Trump and Epstein, not allegedly because it's in court documents, they essayed a 13-year-old girl. This is a man that is documented that was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He was quoted in saying Jeffrey loves girls. He loves them very well, and some of them are even on the younger side. He sent that man a birthday letter with a coded message
Mm,
saying that young women are that these young women don't grow up, that these enigmas don't grow up. And an enigma in multiple articles. Shout out to the Daily, shout out to USA Times and the New York Times and others that broke it down. There are anagrams that enigma stands for a French word that means young girl. He put that in a letter where he signed his name in the pubic hair region of the female that he drew that was a birthday letter to Epstein. And we are acting as if, and the media is acting as if, and the Democrats are acting as if, the Democratic establishment is acting as if this is not something that we should not keep talking about. Even though the Republicans, for the last 8 to 10 years, were saying that the Democrats was running pedophile rings, that the Democrats are pro pedophiles, that they are for the harming of children. When this man partied with a person that trafficked children, that trafficked and sexually assaulted children and young women, like I don't want to hear another word from right wingers who talk about family values, that talk about we need to protect children, that we need to punish criminals, that we care about law and order, when that man in his first administration did not release the Epstein files, that Epstein went to jail under his first administration, Epstein died under his administration, and now want to spin the block talking about the Epstein files when y'all didn't care about it before when he didn't release it. But now y'all
yeah.
want to talk about it now. Now you want to talk about it now that you did that they didn't release it. Okay, cool. Thank you, Johnny Come Latelys. That's cool.
Yeah.
You're still late.
I want to talk a little bit about that too, because like the whole Johnny Come Lately thing, it's like, we anybody on the left or even like some people, more liberal people who study this, we've been telling our MAGA the MAGA people in our family for years. It's like there's a picture of him hanging out with the dude, and there's correspondence, all this other stuff that looks really, really sus. But up until like 2 weeks ago, that was all either fake news or it was made up. It was not until Donald Trump called those very same people, basically, called them stupid and told them to stop following this stuff. There's a reporter from the Rolling Stone who's publishing an article about this, and he described it really well. He said, all this Epstein stuff is a borderline piece of holy writ and religious understanding within the MAGA movement. It's not a small thing or a conspiracy theory that they adopt or bandy about just because they want to or for fun. Among so much of the MAGA grassroots, this is taken as almost a religious principle for them. Donald Trump, in trying to tell a lot of his supporters to move on from this issue, might as well be telling his evangelical supporters, by the way, adultery isn't a sin. You read that wrong in the Bible. That part of the scripture doesn't exist. And it's been really fascinating watching all the fallout. The letter that you just referred to was published in the Wall Street Journal, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News, which is like it is Trump's pet news network. And you're also seeing a great schism between a lot of the dyed in the wool media that is just meant to be a mouthpiece for the Trump administration and the fellow travelers who are having a very strange moment of doubt. So, like, for example, Charlie Kirk is it's like, well, the administration knows it best. And then you see people like, say Joe Rogan, who are like, whoa, I don't know what to make of all this. What's going on? Oh, and again, a lot of people in the base who are coming to the very, again, it took them a long time to come to the conclusion there might be something less than above board about a president who spent much of his life hanging out with underage girls. Hmm.
Oh
I
wait,
think
you
something's
you talking about
amiss
the
here.
guy who owned you talking about the guys that owned the beauty pageants, right? And he used
Yeah,
to
that
brag
guy.
about
Yeah.
going into their dressing rooms while they were getting dressed. The same guy that owned the teen pageants and is on record going into the rooms as teenage girls are getting dressed.
Hmm.
He's on video saying, "Hey, oh that 10-year-old girl or that 13-year-old girl, I'm gonna be dating her in 10 years." He's scoping out new victims. He is on record doing so. Like that's the guy that you're fighting for. That man should be in prison too. This is a man who was charged with over 90 cases and was charged for sexual assault for 33 of those cases. He is on record of essaying his second wife, or his first wife, or no, his second wife. He is on record of doing so. We know this about him now. And now y'all want to act like he hasn't, like he's not. Now y'all want to be shocked and chagrined that you're the guy that you've been crying about is now an Epstein file. Look, let me be very clear. I we saw the oh, also, this is another big part. Shout out to Rokana. Rokana had a motion to make the Epstein files visible for Americans, right? To release the Epstein files. First, it was a committee. There were 8 Republicans and 4 Democrats, and Rokana was on that committee. Only one Republican voted with the Democrats to release the files. All seven of the Republicans voted against it. They were for. So what does that mean? When you are voting to keep the Epstein files secret, you are voting to protect pedophiles or criminals who partied with Epstein. It even got a House vote. It even got a House vote, and every Republican voted against it. Again, it's the Republicans who are saying we want to protect the people who party with Epstein. And this is where I have to throw shade to the Democrats. That the Republicans only won by one vote, and there's been 3 Democrats that have died since Trump's presidency.
Yeah, the gerontocracy of
The
the Democratic Party. Yeah.
gerontocracy, the gerontocracy of the Democratic Party has helped protect monsters who partied with Epstein. Because if we actually had if we had a majority still in the House, and Roe would have brought that up, we could have had those things released.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big gotcha you do get from some of these people is like, well, there's some of your people in it too. Of course, the whole thing is like a lot of people who vote Democrat. There is no like Biden or Clinton cult. I mean, maybe there's a few people on K Street who are still obsessed with the Clintons and stuff, but for the most part, it goes back to that old adage George Carlin said: "It's a big club, and we're not in it." And if this story, and if you have people in your life that this story is affecting people who maybe were like true believers, and this is the first moment of doubt they've had, exploit that. Tell them like this is what capitalism does. This is what the oligarchy does. They protect their own and they keep their secrets hidden, and they call you a dummy if you demand answers. Um, I mean, there is a little opportunity from that, just like an outreach perspective. And it is again also it is just really fascinating how again they call it Teflon Don. No scandal has been able to separate him from his base, and this has been the first time where you are really seeing like a big schism, and it's not going away. It's still in the news, and part of that again is it's also part of the logic of the mainstream media. This is a really popular story. It gets ratings. They have an incentive, a financial incentive to keep talking about it. So I mean, I'm really gonna be fascinated about how this plays out. Because again, his usual bag of tricks are not sufficient, and you know, I think they've shopped a few ways to approach it. One of the more disgusting things I've seen from a couple like people, Republicans on social media is like, well, we just got to admit the guy's a pedo, but how well, that's just a price to pay for all of these good policies we need, which is code for it's okay to have a pedophile president as long as we can be brutal to immigrants and be fascist, that
You
kind of thing.
you are not you cannot say you are pro family. You cannot say you're for protecting children. You cannot say any of those things if you are protecting people who are in the Epstein's list. Now, let me be very clear. I don't care what their political affiliation is, left, right, center, whatever. It does not matter to me. What matters is that we get the information of who was with this person and who knew. And also, we need to know. We should know. We should know.
Hmm.
The American people have a right to know. And acting as if they don't, or acting as if it's it's you know what it does do? And this is something that I just realized this further harms the victims.
Oh,
The victims
absolutely.
do not get justice. How are we supposed to be for law and order and getting justice for those that were victimized if we're protecting those that did the victimizing?
Yeah. And it's really like something I've thought about just from a political perspective. It's like, why was the Trump administration, remember the Trump camp, playing with this live grenade in the first place? Because like the Epstein issue does is it gets a justice. It regardless of your political affiliation, people want these monsters brought to justice, and they don't care how much money they have. Of course, the people who have all the money absolutely do care about that. There's a lot of their compatriots on that list. They want to protect their own. But it's an issue that does unite people across political ideologies against the ruling class. And while the Trump administration has done a really good job historically of trying to push this, it's all the Democrats, it's their cabal, it is exclusively their pedophile cabal. To have Trump flailing about this in public has actually it's exposed this truth to a lot of his most diehard supporters, and it's maybe one of the more positive developments I've seen in a long time. I don't, it's something that unites people across very diverse and different backgrounds, and I don't know what their end game was with all this stuff. Because I mean, obviously he knows he knows he's allegedly on
Oh,
that list. I should say that, but
he's cooked.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, he knows. He
Mhm.
knows he's cooked. It's
Yeah.
not. It's if so. When Elon said, "Hey, yo, let me tell y'all something," that boy's on the list. When he said that, in his fit of rage, and he said that, he wasn't lying. And I don't like Elon. Elon's a Nazi. But hey,
Yeah.
broken clock. We've
Oh
had
yeah. Hmm.
multiple. We've had multiple broken clocks today.
Yeah.
So
President Trump reminds me, like I mean, there's a new Jurassic Park movie that just came out. There's that scene in Jurassic Park where with Dennis Nedry, he's got the stick, and then like there's a Dilophosaurus is right in front of him. He's like, "Stick, go get the stick, stupid!" And like dinosaur turns its head and it stares right back at him, and like that's the Trump base right now. It's like I'm
yeah.
what? No, I don't
Oh
care
yeah.
about the
Oh no.
stick.
We
Give me
don't.
the meat.
Oh no. Oh no. We gonna get something.
Yeah.
And we gonna y'all have told us that this is the thing that we are fighting against. You have said that this is the thing that we are fighting against. And what happened? Now we're here for it. They're
Hmm.
like, oh no,
Yeah.
we got time today. And they want
Hmm.
all the city want all of it.
Hmm.
But yeah.
So with that, I know there's a couple other stories. If we're sticking on media, there's a big one that dropped a minute ago, but I know there's a couple other things you wanted to hit on too, right? Was it?
uh we can talk about the media one.
Okay.
Uh what was I mean there's so many stories. There's so many
Yeah.
stories that we have not gotten to
Hmm.
that we need to talk about. The big one is I want to shout out. I want to do some good news first. Shout out to Josh Johnson, the comedian who's on the Daily Show. He went from just being a contributor to the Daily Show to now being one of the main hosts. Right? They're like you know
Hmm.
how they do the rotating host. He is one of them. If you haven't seen any of John Johnson's uh uh videos on YouTube, and the way that he breaks down the news with comedy is so amazing and so funny. And the reason why I'm bringing him up, and I'm bringing up the Daily Show, is because a former contributor, Stephen Colbert, used to be a
Hmm.
contributor of the Daily Show, and y'all know Stephen Colbert because he is the number one rated host of late night television. Well, the parent company of the late night, it needed to do a merger. They wanted to do a merger with Sundance.
Hmm.
And to appease the Trump administration, they gave the Trump administration a bribe because Trump has continued.
Allegedly, but yeah.
No,
Keep
Trump
going.
has continued in public threatening media organizations, banning them from press briefings, banning them from the White House, calling media that he doesn't like the enemy of the people. Uh, uh, Actively antagonizing them, so much so that there were different media organizations that were paying him off with bribes, with legalized bribes. These were legalized bribes.
Yeah.
One of the
Hmm.
bribes that we are going to talk about is the fact that the Sundance and the merger that CBS and their parent company was doing with Sundance was saying, hey, we will give the Trump administration millions of dollars and Stephen Colbert's head on a pike
Yeah.
if
Hmm.
you leave us alone. And the Trump administration must have said yes, because next year, the number one rated
One.
nightly news show will be taken off the air. Wait, let me say that one more time for the people in the back. The number one rated news show, late night talk show, is going to be off the air next year. Is it a coincidence that it happened 2 to 3 days after Stephen Colbert talked about the merger with Sundance? You know, is it a coincidence that it happened right after the Daily Show, who was also under that same company, talked about the merger? You know, yeah, it's kind of a coincidence. Is this also a coincidence that the same company that owns that late night show also owns 60 Minutes, and the head of 60 Minutes stepped down because he said he does not have editorial control because the company wanted to approve that merger with Sundance, and it was an attack on the journalistic integrity of those shows. Yeah, yeah. What we are seeing, and if you haven't, do not understand how authoritarian regimes work or how fascist regimes work, you go after the media until the media bends a knee, and you go after the education department. You slash it. You put in your own type of new political correctness in place of education, so people won't fight back. What we are seeing is the active dismantling of our country and the free speeches and the democracy that we care about, because this administration is attacking, literally canceling voices that oppose them. And this was supposed to be the free speech administration.
Yeah. Some important things to follow up with that too is it's I think it's important for people to understand, especially like the role of people like Stephen Colbert and John Stewart and the like. Which again, he's not a newsman necessarily, but because of the way media has functioned in this country, especially the last like 30 years, it's become very corporatized. It's become very safe, and not to say that like the Late Show is a bastion of radicalism, but being a comedian does allow people like him and Jon Stewart to express certain truths that you probably are not going to see on CNN or MSNBC. And you have a president who is very fickle and emotional about that stuff. There is a very plausible theory that Donald Trump hates PBS because Sesame Street made fun of him in the 90s. There's like this episode where Donald Grump is trying to buy Sesame Street, played by Joe Pesci, and it's a clear, like, obvious, like Donald Trump analog. But yeah, it is, and of course, we're about like 20 dead canaries into this coal mine at this point, as somebody pointed out on social media. But it does show that like the rules of kind of liberal capital, that oh, you need a pressure release valve. Oh, Stephen Colbert, even though Stephen Colbert makes their company more money than any other late show host now, they thought it was more in their due diligence to hand, again, like you said, hand the president Steve Colbert's head on a plate or a pike or whatever object you want to say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they Game of Thrones Stephen Colbert to
mhm,
appease President Joffrey.
yeah.
That's what they did. They red wedding Stephen Colbert so that Joffrey would be happy.
And I mean, one thing I will say is like, I know some people's like, why should we care about this? Stephen Colbert is a liberal, and I mean, his show platforms some of the most figures in the U.S. Like Bernie Sanders is a regular guest on there. AOC, it said, well, I mean, there's problems with AOC. We just talked about Zoran and so on and so forth. It also, a lot of our younger listeners may forget this, but him and Jon Stewart back about 20 years ago, they really they kept the fire going in some very dark times where the progressive media was not as accessible or popular as it is today. And if you wanted to know, if you needed some good social satire or to figure out what was really going on uh, during the Bush administration, you tuned into the Daily Show and the Colbert Report.
Yeah. Yeah, you had
Yeah.
the Daily Show, Colbert, and this is when Bill Maher was actually based and actually had decent takes
Mhm.
before he made his right wing pivot. You had News One, Roland Martin, and others that was on TV. You had um people like Mark Lamont Hill on CNN. You had actual some decent progressives on MSNBC at the time that was still telling truth to power. These are news centers where you could uh you can laugh, but also being told the truth. You know what I'm saying? When this is you could laugh and know that the people who are talking to you are giving you real facts and news, bruh. The fact that the Trump administration feels like they need to go after comedians for cracking jokes about him tells you what they will do to actual news broadcasts that takes their job seriously.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that most people need to be very conscious of. People need to fight back against. And I know some people thinking, I'm like, man, Sundance and the other corporation are just saying they were doing it for budgetary reasons. Okay, let me let
You know
me
what? I have a pitch, Lawrence. You know what? If it's for budgetary reasons, you know what? Our show costs about 30 months, 30 bucks a month to produce. So CBS, give us a call. We're ready. We'll fly out to
wait,
New
wait,
York.
wait, wait, wait. No, no, because we'll be fired. We'll be fired very soon.
No,
Not because our show's not dope. It's just that we're
yeah,
gonna talk about the merger and we're gonna talk about Trump, and
no,
then
yeah,
we're gonna get
all that stuff.
we're gonna
Yeah.
get the same talking
Mhm.
that Cenk Uygur got when he was working at MSNBC, right?
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So the reason why I bring that up is that I want people to think about this. We've been doing media for a long time, and we've watched other shows and watched other conversations with media and stuff like that. When you have a show that's over budget, or when you have a show that's hurting the financial pockets of a company, but it's the number one rated show, it's your biggest cash cow. What you do with what most producers or directors or CEOs would do, they will bring in the star, they'll bring in the cast and be like, hey, can we renegotiate? Look, I want to renegotiate you to to a lower price, to a lower price, but we can raise the prices of the 200 people who are working on your show. We can raise their prices. We can give them more vacation time. You'll take a hit, but we'll scale back the show so you don't have to do as much work. We'll bring
Yeah.
in another host, or we'll bring in someone else to help lighten the burden that you have to do, even though we're giving you a pay cut. You would
By
renegotiate.
the way, there's a very real model for this. If we remember when the pandemic first happened, and all of these late night talk show hosts were literally doing their shows from their living rooms over
Or in
Zoom.
the
So
void. They were doing it,
yeah,
or what
yeah,
was it last week tonight with John Oliver?
or
He was
the white
literally doing
void.
it
Yeah,
like in a bubble, like
yeah.
in a very much how we are doing ours, right?
No, yeah,
Um,
mhm.
um, that's what they would do. They didn't do that. They said we're taking it completely off the air. Completely off the air. You don't want to renegotiate. You don't want to talk about how we can keep the number one rated late night TV show. Nah, what that meant was, yo, fam, you're the lamb. We need to sacrifice it
Mhm.
to our God King, and that's what they did.
Yeah, I have a couple other thoughts on this too, just to kind of wrap up my take. So one thing is like it's also yeah, it's almost kind of giving permission to some of these other CEOs to start making these bad calculations. You know, David Zaslav, who runs HBO, he's been known as politically conservative. That's the home of shows like Last Week Tonight. And of course, you know, Jon Stewart's show or The Daily Show, which is also an institution, which is owned by the same parent company that Colbert's is. And it's worrying. It's troublesome. One thing I will say, this could be like kind of a half glass full thing, is, you know, talent like, you know, Stephen Colbert, Jon Stewart, and they're not as politically left as I am we are today. But that's a lot of times that's where they got their our starting ideological starting point. And one thing that can happen when these things are kind of pushed underground, people are still going to seek out those voices. And sometimes when they don't have a corporation over your shoulder, you can be a little bit bolder. They can be a little bit more outspoken. Also, people are kind of forced to people who are hungry for this kind of entertainment, infotainment type stuff. They will seek it out. And granted, who knows how far down the pipeline the plug will be pulled on stuff like that. I'm thinking of things like, Hasan. I mean, back in the day, Redacted Tonight, that's been off the air for a number of years now. But
I mean, you still have
we
good lefty
saw
show. Mhm.
a good example of this was, a lot of the, dyed in the wool, blue no matter who liberals after the election felt like, you know, um, exiled to the wilderness by the Democratic Party after the most recent elections. And Bernie and AOC did their Fight Oligarchy tour. And something that gets missed a lot, it wasn't a lot of people who burning veterans and stuff who went to that stuff. It was a lot of those people who never maybe listened to that message before and were hungry for something new, who were really filling up the stands at those events. I think maybe we could see something like this if the mainstream corporate media keeps offering more heads on a platter to the Trump administration. But it's definitely a very bad bellwether of things to come. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lawrence.
I mean, Doug, it is crazy that even some online media now, like are just corporate shields. I'm thinking about like the valuetainment folks and Tim Pool and all those tools, right?
Hmm.
But there's still good online left shows. It's just that when you're seeing the TV, live TV, the regular normal mainstream television being shut down like this, you don't think online media is not going to be next. We've seen what they did with pizza, with Adpocalypse and things of that nature, right?
Hmm.
People now going to Patreon. Joyanne Reed got fired, and now she has her own podcast. Don Lemon got fired, has his own podcast, right? Like, people are now moving, even right wingers like Tucker Carlson. Well, I mean, he should have got fired, but now he has his own thing on X, right?
Hmm.
Like, we see that free speech or being objective is harmful to those that are in power, because those that are in power need you to push their narrative, and when you don't, they will come after you.
Absolutely, 100%. Lawrence, got a little bit more time. Is there what else did you want to hit on while we're here together um, recording?
Oh, speaking of fascists and people wanting fascist crackdowns, did you see that Jubilee? So we don't usually talk about Jubilee. Jubilee can be a hit or miss, but there's conversations that they like to have with opposite sides and things, and they have a whole series called Surrounded, where you have one person with an ideology and opinion, you have 20 people that have the opposite of that opinion. Mehdi Hasan, shout out to one of the people who created a left wing investigative news site. He created Zateo after being fired from MSNBC because he was telling the truth about Gaza, and they wanted to pay him more money to shut up. And he said, no, through, you can take a long walk up a short bridge. He created Zateo. Zateo, fantastic news organization. Shout out to them because they are doing the Lord's work with wonderful investigative journalism. That man chose to go on Surrounded. He was the lone progressive, liberal, sane adult versus 20 right wing fascists. And I'm not using that. And I'm not using that in a hyperbolic way. Some of them literally said they
Yeah,
supported Nazis.
there's a dude
Some of
who's
them
like, I
literally,
love Franco. I'm a huge fan of them. I want
yeah,
autocracy. They're
yeah,
just like, yeah.
the Nazi thought leader. You support a Nazi thought leader? That's cool. I don't talk to fascists, and I'm so glad that he stood on business. He was like, I don't debate fascists. We
Yeah,
can have a conversation,
it's
but
funny
I
because
don't.
like that gets to the core of like because you share it in the group chat and I'm like, oh, I don't usually watch the Jubilee stuff, and then one of my criticisms of the Jubilee stuff sometimes it kind of platforms and normalizes ideologies or politicians that should not be like fascism is.
Yeah,
But this was a deft example of again he literally like basically he just completely stops debating at that point and he still talks to the guy and like it's funny. Like a lot of them brought up that old canard. It's like, oh, you support freedom of speech, but the First Amendment, but you won't engage in debate. And what he brought up brilliantly is like, you don't owe any rando on the street a debate. They can say things, they can talk, they have their First Amendment, but that doesn't mean I have to engage with it or respond to it. And he brought up a great point we bring up
like
on the
it.
show here is fascism is not something that should be platformed. It needs to be ridiculed. It should not be part of like the public conversation. And Mehdi Hasan, immense credit, was willing to make that very and abundantly clear during his absolute like massacre of
Dog,
these.
dog.
That was an entertaining
Mehdi,
thing to watch, folks. If you got some time,
Mehdi,
it's like an hour and 40 minutes, but it was mwah. And like part of it
if
is
you
Mehdi Hasan is just so good. If you're a fan of his before, I've been following his stuff since he was part of the Intercept. But like he is really good at debate. He is very good at like when especially somebody says some ideological BS if he's engaging with a right winger or a centrist, he is so good at calling them out and pivoting the conversation and is like a master class. Watching this video, watching him do this, so it's just like one after one after one after another after another. Go ahead, Lawrence.
man, dog. Yeah, this was a one-sided. This was a one-sided butt whooping. I haven't seen a one-sided butt whooping this badly since Gohan fought Cell Juniors. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
dude, like he was one-shotting them. Like this was
Hmm.
one of those. Yeah, this was the thing that made it outrageous was that when you're having that conversation, if you watch it, Mehdi's entire job is to put a prompt out there so they can talk about it, right? Trump is defying the Constitution.
Hmm.
And then they'll walk up and they'll say, how is he defying the Constitution? He says, yeah, the first, the fifth, the 14th, the 26th. He's trying to like he went down a list of the fourth. He was like, there's so many amendments that the 14th, and he was like, there's so many amendments that Trump is trying to. He is either destroying or he is trying to destroy. The majority of those conversations, they wouldn't even address the thing that he is saying. They would,
They constantly
they
wanted to
would,
talk about what they wanted to talk about,
yeah,
which is
they
great.
wanted to
Like,
talk about what they
nope.
want to talk about. And then when Mehdi would bring it back up, she's like, okay, so you're conceding the point that what I said is right. And they'd be like, yeah, I agree that Trump is doing that and he should go further. And it's like, wow, you don't actually agree with democracy. You don't actually care about democracy. You don't actually care about American values. And you're supposed to be the America First Party. Like, it is, it was enlightening. And this goes back to media analysis and media criticism that I have for other left wingers, other people who are like, yeah, we should reach out to independents and things of that nature. And this is also the reason why I'm glad that people are seeing this outside of normalizing Nick Fuentes type of ideology. These people are out here with their entire face that's not covered. They are being open and honest about their ideology. And you need to tell those people who say that they're sane, this is who you're aligned with. This is who you're kicking it with. You agree with that? You agree with the things that they're saying. This is what you look like when you say the nutcase things that you're saying. You agree with those people because those people are saying that they don't want democracy. They love the Second Amendment, but they don't like the first.
Mhm.
They want they want Republicans who are in power to carve up the Constitution so that they benefit. But when Democrats come in to amend the Constitution so it's fair for all people, they hate it. Those are the people who we are fighting against. So when it comes to that, the Democratic Party and people who are a part of the left, people who are part of progressives, people who want fair and equal treatment under the law, if you say you want those things, we have to fight back just as viciously and calculated when it comes in organize, strategize, mobilize, and talk about policies that will make sure that those people, like some of those people are too far gone. We're not going to get them. Everyone else, though, we talk to their economic interests and they're fall in line with us. If
Also, a
you
really
don't,
good way
then
that video too. If you want to get it, like as you were kind of alluding to, if you want to
yeah,
get a good like representation of current, like a lot of the different currents of the of far right ideology, there are a lot of different flavors on display, and the two that probably struck me the most, there's like this salmon shirted dude who he's kind of spouting a lot of this almost sounded like one of those MAGA communist people who like they have like the kind of more capitalist economic analysis, but everything is the fault of immigrants and black people, et cetera, et cetera. And that's essentially their thing. They almost sounded like Bernie Sanders at times, and they were talking about like labor power, but in some weird pretzel logic, the ultimate fault of all this lies at the hands of people with no power and no money. And of course,
pretty
Hassan was good
much.
at pointing out, it's like, why aren't you mad at the rich people who make all of these decisions? What is, and then he
What?
had, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, dog. Like, no, it wasn't just that. It was the fact that the miseducation, the white people are native to this land. The mis the like it goes back to the argument of
Oh man,
why was it that the Department of Education was one of the first things that Trump and Doge decided to cut, because some of the
yeah.
things that they were saying, if you
Did
have a
not know their own
basic
history. Oh no.
understanding, if you have a basic understanding of history or education, then you would know.
Yeah. There's this
Then you
dude
would
on
know.
who's a Catholic nationalist, and if you know anything about history, Catholics have been discriminated against, uh, not so
The
much in the
dude,
last
the
50, 60 years, but talk to like if you got like a racist granddad or something, he'll have some things they say about Catholics.
dog,
Like Irish, like
the dude that said he wants autocracy and he wants uh uh Catholics to basically lead the autocracy, and he's cool with the neo-Nazi. He's cool with the neo-Nazi idea. I forgot the dude's name. That person, I think it was Frankfurt or whatever his dude's name was, the Nazi
mhm,
person.
yeah,
That dude killed Catholics. He killed over
yeah, yeah.
150,000
Hmm.
people, women and children, and some of them were Catholics and people who were tied to the Spanish Republic. This is the one thing that I did like about the Jubilee. When Mehdi dropped facts, they backed it and fact checked it in real
Yeah.
time.
Hmm.
In real time. Every time those people, now this is my problem. When those people would say the ridiculous things that they were saying, they would not fact check them, but they would fact check Mehdi. And Mehdi was dropping gems, absolute gems.
Hmm.
And I encourage everyone to go watch it. It's amazing.
Yeah, good stuff. I would never be that fast on my feet. It's like, yeah, and there's a reason I don't do the debate format on this show, and it's just like when I hear something absurd, like I need to like take a moment to process it, go research, give an articulate response. It's like if I was hearing some of this stuff, okay, in the middle, I would just have you just see this expression on my face. And it would just I'd be so befuddled. I had a hard time coming up with a quick answer, but like, yeah, he's a master of his craft when it comes to that kind of format. So, I don't really have too much else I wanted to touch on here, Lawrence. Anything else quick before we kind of wrap things up?
Nah, man. I mean, there's so much. There's so much. There's so many things. Well, we said that later this week we'll be doing some other quick hits. I have a bunch of stories that we do need to hit. Um, uh, More progressives are winning. There was another progressive that won another primary mayoral race. So we have to talk about that. We said that we'll talk about it later this week, and we'll upload some of those to YouTube and some of our other channels. So yeah, we'll do that later this week.
Okay, sounds good. Everybody out there in Radio Land, thank you for tuning in. Again, you can find us online as well. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast. You can find that on most podcasting apps. Everybody, until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.